Ms. Stephanie, and today I'm going to demo a client server chat application for Python, written in Python. So the first thing you have to do is download the PyChat directory. This directory contains the client and server Python programs. You can do that by going to GitHub. You go to https://github.com/PyChat. Here you can clone the repository onto your computer and run the program. So once it's on your computer, you have to make sure that you have all the dependencies in order for this program to run. So it uses Python 2.7.6. You can check what version of Python you have by opening your terminal. If you're using a Unix machine, or your command line if you're using Windows, and type in Python // version. So you can see I'm running Python 2.7.6. So I'm running this on Unix. It is a Mininet virtual machine on VirtualBox. But this Python program should work fine on your Mac or your Windows, as long as you have the dependencies. So after you download the repository onto your local machine, you need to cd or change directory into the PyChat folder. So mine is located on my desktop, so cd desktop PyChat. And if you do ls, you can see that that this contains will contain a client.py Python file, server.python file, and a typology cs.python file. It's these three files here on the GitHub repo. I added 2 more files, but just ignore those. So for my demonstration, I'll be using a typology to run on this Mininet operating system. However, you don't have to do this. I did this for testing purposes. And so I'm going to start my topology. To do that, I do sudo topology cs.py. Sudo python topology cs.py. And here you can see my topology started. I have a 1 switch and 5 hosts. So let me see if I go on a diagram. So here, this diagram here shows you what this network looks like. So the hosts are assigned IP address 10.0.0.1 for host 1 and 0.0.0. whatever the host number is for the other of them. So those are the IP addresses we're going to use for our chat application. So we're going to open a terminal window for each of the hosts. So if you do xterm, host 1, host 2, host 3, host 4, host 5, you should get a window for each of them. And they're in the same directory that we were in, the PyChat directory. So the first thing you have to do is start your server. So to do this, you do python server.py. So you do python server.py, and as the argument, you need to put in the IP address of the server. So mine, I'm using host 5, so I'll put in 0.0.0.5. And this should start your server. It says it's listening at this IP address. I hard-coded port 8888 because it's a high number port that I know none of my other applications are using. So, excuse me. So there shouldn't be a problem with that. So as you can see, there's just a menu shows up. You can either shut down the server or view current users. So there's no users online, so when I enter the question mark, nothing shows up. So the next thing you need to do is start a client. So you do Python client.py, and then you put the IP address of the server. Oops, did the wrong one. So if you guys want to see that, if you enter the wrong IP address, you'll just get an error, and it'll say server not available, and exit out. All right. So if you enter the correct IP address, you should get a window open. And so it will automatically assign you a username using a random number generator. So it will be user 7802. It could be different the next time you log in or start your client. In the window, will have some instructions. So you can type at a username for direct message and /user list to view other users. So let's go ahead and do a chat. So let's start another client. So you'll get a join message letting you know that someone else joined. And so let's say you just joined and you want to know who else is online. You go /user list and you see that user 7802 is online. So you say hi, it'll show up here. And it'll have which user sent the message and then the message. So let's say we have 3 clients at the same time, and you don't want client user 6731 to view what your message. You want a one-on-one message. Perfectly reasonable. So if you do the @ symbol and then you type in the user that you want the direct message to. So I want my direct message to go to user 7802. So it says hi. And this user didn't receive the message. So in the server, it's also logging everything that's happening. So when you join and saying so-and-so joined the chat, and they send a message, so the message is logged. And if someone leaves, it'll notify everyone in the chat room that a user left the chat. So, oops. So if we close everything out, I closed out my server. Oops. I have to go back. That's okay. I wanted to go through the source code next. So let's look at the client.python file. Oops, let's open it in Atom actually. Alrighty, so you can see that you import all of your libraries. For the GUI, I'm using something called Kinter. This should already be included in the Python 2.7.6 library, so you don't have to download anything additional. And then we're connecting to port 8888. You can change this if you'd like. I just entered a high number port, so I wouldn't have any issues. I did some validation. So if you don't enter the correct number of arguments, then you'll get an error message and the program will exit out. The host is set from the command line. So the first argument, or argument 1, which is the second argument, was going to be set as the host. And so there's a function to have the client listen for received messages on the connection. So each client has their own instance of this listening function, and basically you're listening for the message that's being sent from the server, and then yeah, that's pretty much it. It's using the kinter to display in the GUI. So A is just rotating between A and B. So just, I guess, to differentiate between who's sending the messages. And then here is the say it. So this is the message that's being sent to the server and to the other clients. So if we open our, just go here. Oops. Let's see what our I'll have to start the server first. And start another one. So when you enter a message in here, that is the say it function being called. So it's getting the message and sending it to the server. And then if the message can't be sent, it'll notify the user that the server's not working and exit. So here's where our socket connection is made. So you're connecting to the host and the port. And then, so the host is the IP address and the port is the port number. This is that pop-up window that shows up if you enter an invalid IP address or if the server's not available. Okay, this role text right here is in the chat window, this box where the message is displayed. And I had as you notice, this grid right here on the right's yellow. In a future release, I would like the user name and status to display here versus displaying in the chat window. So that's why that's there. But that's what this user display grid is for. And when you're using Kinter, it uses grid for positioning. So both of these are on the same row. They're just in different columns. And so here, this is where your username is being generated. I just did user and then a random number generator between 1,000 and 9,000. I was going to have it so you can just enter any name. However, for just validation errors and I guess I didn't want people to enter the same name. So in a future release, if we do have the give the user the ability to choose their own name. There would have to be validation, so you didn't have duplicates. And I'd ideally like to have a username stored in some sort of database table, so or maybe even like a login. But for now, just a random number generator. If the username is empty, then you can't join the chat. This functionality is there from when I had it before, when the user had to enter a username. I think I can show you. Oh yeah, here. So when you're using Kinter, in order for the window to stay open, you have to use this function, main loop. So I created the chat window here. Chat window equals TK, and that's how you create a Kinter object. Set the title. I have chat, but I'll use PyChat. And yep, so that's how the client works. It sends messages. I think it sent that. Yes, here. So this is where it sends the message to the server. So the next one is the server.py. So this one's a bit more complex. So use the same port, same validation to make sure that you enter the correct number of arguments. And has a listening function. So it's listening for the connection, and it sets temp is what is being sent from the client. And so I change it so anytime you get something temp, it will say which user it came from and then the message. And if temp is 0 or there's nothing, then I guess that means the user left. And then it will let you know that there's no clients connected. And here's some exception handling. So this is where we display the user list. Basically, it creates an array for user list, and it appends every time a user joins. It appends an element in that array. Appends that element to the array. Here it's saying if the username is in the array of clients, then we're going to send the user status to the address. So if I'm in the chat window and I want to view the user list, I don't want that to be sent to everyone. I just want that to display in my own window. So that's basically what this logic is doing. This is the logic for doing the, I call them mentions, but sending the direct message. Basically, you're getting the address and the connection, and if the username is in the message with the @ symbol, then you're getting the address and the connection of that username, and then you're just sending it specifically to that address. And this is just, if you don't specify either of those, it just sends the message to the entire group. And this is where you check if while the connection is accepted, so while the connection is going on, get the username. So receiving the username from the client, and you're starting a new thread, so it's multi-threaded. So basically, each client is a new thread, and that's what this logic does. I think you start a thread here too. Yes. So every time you create a client, it creates a new thread. And here, so basically if the client is connected, then they don't append them to the client list. But if they're connecting for the first time, we're going to add their information to our client array. So it gets the connection, the address, the username, and the status. And then it sends a join message. So every time user joins the chat, it'll print that message here. And then also print it in the server. So when you're sending a message using the send, not send all, I think up here I do send all, but if you're just using send, you have to encode the message. So they sends Python sends messages as bytes, and so when you get them, you have to decode them, and in order to send them, you have to encode them. So when you do send all, you don't have to do that. You could just send a message, but if you're using send, then you have to encode it. And then this is the menu that displays in the console for the server. So if the connection is false, then your client is offline. Otherwise, they're online. And then if you hit question mark, it will display the print the user status to the console. And that's it. So thank you for watching. When I do part 2, hopefully I will be able to add the user list to this yellow portion of the screen and maybe do a login or some sort of way to save the users' usernames to a database and add logging. Well, thank you for watching and have a good day.